Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today on Masechtas Yevamot daf Lamed. We are going to begin at the very top of Lamed Amud Aleph, the Mishnah. Shlosh Achin. So you have three brothers. Shnai mehen nesum shtei achayos. And two of these brothers, let's call them Reuven and Shimon, were married to two sisters, Rachel and Leah. And then you have Levi, who was married to some other woman. So, Meis Echad Mibali Achayos, let's say Reuven died, and therefore, now the question, obviously Shimon cannot marry this Yevamot, this Shomer Shama, because she is the sister. She's already married, he's married to the sister. So the din is like this, the Kanas Nasi Nachrias Asishto. So, Levi, there's no reason why he can't marry her, so he does. He ends up marrying her. So now Levi has two wives. He has his first wife, which was the Nachris, and now this wife of Reuven, Umeis Harish Umeis. And now this this third man dies. So right, so Levi dies. So Harishona Yotz Misham Achasisha. So the first one, in this case, Rishon is referring to the sister that he married. So this is Achosisha. This is your wife's sister. So obviously, again, Reuven's out of the picture, died. Then Levi died. Though Shimon can't marry her because that's Achosisha. He's already married to the sister. So also, he's not going to need to do Yibum or Chalitza to the Tsara, to this Nachris, because she's married to Levi. She was married to Levi, and Levi was married to the sister, so therefore it's a tsar. Also, Mimer, let's say instead of doing actually Yibum, Levi did Mimer with Reuven's wife. So again, Reuven died, and therefore one of the sisters was Zakuk. Instead of Levi doing Yibum, he only did Mimer, and then Umeis, and then Levi subsequently died. So in this case, again, obviously this woman who is the sister, Shimon can't marry, obviously, but we don't say that it's a strong enough connection that because of this, the Nachris is potter completely. Rather, Nachris choletzes v'mesevema. So Taima de'avad ba'maimer. It's only because Levi did something. To'lovad ba'maimer. And let's say Levi did nothing and then dies. Nachris nami miyavma. It's mashma that he would even be able to do Yibum, which sounds like Ein Zika. So Amar Rav Nachman, so Samaris Ein Zika v'afil b'chad acha. This is according to the Shita of Ein Zika. And this actually is a difficult question, because it asks, what's the din regarding, again, if Mimer was not done? So it's totally if you hold Ein Zika or Ein Zika. So if you hold Ein Zika, which is what our Mishnah is, the diak, is Yavumi Nami Miyavma. So Shimon could even do Yibum with her. However, the one who says Yesh Zika, so we'd say, Huadin de below Mimer Chaletzes V'Mesyavemes. Because there's a Zika, so even without Mimer, there's this connection, and therefore only Chalitza can be done. Second Mishnah on the staff. Shloisha Achim, again, three brothers. Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Shnai mehem Nesuin Shtei Achayos. So Reuven and Shimon were married to two sisters, Rachel and Leah. The Echad Nasi Nachris, and one of them, Levi, was married to some other woman, unrelated. Now, instead of Reuven dying first, the opposite happens. Meis hanosui nachris. Let's say Levi is the one that dies first. So now you have this nachris woman. So l'chayra, you should be able to marry her, and that's what happens. V'kanas echad mibali achayos as ishto. Let's say Shimon married the nachris. So now, not that the nachris was the first wife, but it's the second wife of Shimon. But it's still a tsara to an erva. Umeis, and if Shimon dies, so what should Reuven do? So Rishona, the sister, Yosef Mishum Achasisha, Ushnia Mishum Sarasa. So it sounds very similar to the first case. We're going to ask what the difference is. Also, Maimer Umeis. Let's say in this situation, Shimon, instead of marrying her, marrying the Nachris, he did Maimer, and then Shimon subsequently died. So Nachris Chaletzes v'Mesyavemes. So similar to what we said, Reuven should do Chalitza. Again, this is because Maimer was done. If Maimer was not done, maybe he could even do Yibum, according to the Shita of Ein Zika. This mission is the same. No hashta. In fact, you can make the following diak based on the previous Mishnah. Uma hasam over there the achas isha havya tsar lenachris. Even though in the first case, what happened? They had Reuven, Shimon, and Levi. Reuven died, so Levi was already married to the nachris. She was like the main wife, and the second woman who's like secondary still will pater her. Sarah nachris amar nachris asura. We still say that the nachris is asur because it's Saras Ereva, even though she was really the first wife. Nonetheless, that's how it works. So So in this situation, it's the opposite, where Shimon was already married to the sister, so like she was the primary wife, and then the nachos came along. Certainly that should be like the tzara. So certainly these dinim should apply, that only chalitza should be done. So the question is lokoshakein. So Tana hach. Lokoshakein. So Tana hach Tana bereisha v'hach chazil hater v'sharia. You're right. What actually happened originally is the Tana did make a distinction. He did see this chiluk. He thought that there, perhaps in the first case, because Levi's wife originally was the nachris, and then the sister was only like a secondary because she was married afterwards. So maybe the din is that we would matter the nachri to Reuven, the nachras, this woman who is not related to the sisters. But then v'hadar, then afterwards the Tana was chayzer and chazli isura. So the truth is there is no chiluk. If I did a chavivile achdama umishtul zosmim kaima, because really the first Mishnah was something which was chaviv to him, because he chapped that really there shouldn't be machalik, and whenever something is chaviv, we always mention it first. Third Mishnah. Shloisha Achim, again, 3 brothers. Reuven, Shimon, Levi. Shnai mehem nasuim shnei achayos. Same situation. Reuven and Shimon are married to Rachel, and Leah, their sisters. The Echad nasi nachris, and as we said before, Levi is married to some other woman who's not related. Now, here it's a little bit different. Meis Echad mibal achayos. So far similar to the first Mishnah. Reuven's wife, Reuven died, who was married to one of the sisters. V'kanos nosi nachris, that's Ishto. And Levi married this woman. Okay. Umesa Ishto shel Sheni. Now what happened was, Shimon's wife died. Now, Shimon is now not married to anyone. Reuven died, and Levi has 2 wives. V'yachach meis, and then Levi dies, the one who's nasi nachras. Harizu asur alav olamus. So we say that even though Levi died, so we say that she is asur to Shimon forever. Hoya v'nesulav sha'achas, because it was asur at one moment. Because what happened in the situation? Again, Reuven died. When Reuven died, Shimon could not do Yibum with Reuven's wife, because Reuven's wife and Shimon's wife were sisters. So Levi had to be the one that did the Yibum, and he did. But the problem was that once there was already this time that Shimon could not do it, even though Shimon's wife subsequently died, so you think, what's the problem? No. Since she was not allowed to go to Shimon at the time of Reuven's death, so therefore she's usher to him now. So Rabbi Yehuda Marav, Kol Yevamot she'ena nikara ba b'shas nefila. At the time of nefila, in other words, when Reuven died, we cannot read Yevamot Yavoleha. The potential for Shimon to do Yibum, harihi ke'eshazach sheish labanim, the asura. It's ke'ilu, like she has children and she's usher to you, and therefore it doesn't matter, no matter what happens later on, the din is you cannot take her. My kamashmul and Tanina. Where do you learn this in our Mishnah? Harizu asura, olav oilamos hovanesra olav sha'achas. Shimon cannot take the sister, even though the sister that Shimon was married to died. But since when Reuven died, Shimon wasn't able to marry Reuven's wife because Reuven's wife and Shimon's wife are sisters. So if that's the case, that's the same thing. So that's only when he wasn't fit for the original Nefila, when Reuven died. Maybe if she is fit at that time when Reuven died, a metishri, maybe we'll say that she's mutter. Kamash Malan, that we still will not allow it. Because again, even though maybe he was allowed at that time, but the din is that even, let's say later on, she was usher to him because it was a tzara. So then we say it's usher then too. We also learned that Shnei achin nesun shtei achayos, two brothers married two sisters. Meis ach mehen, one brother dies. Obviously, the second brother can't marry her because he's married to the other sister. V'yachach meis ishto shel sheni, and then the second wife dies. So maybe now he's not married to anyone. Maybe he could marry her sister. Harizu asura level lamas. He's not allowed to. Hoya v'nesu lev sha'achas. It doesn't make any difference. In either situation, still aser. Maybe it's because she was pushed out from his house completely. Here, she's not pushed from the house completely. Since she's fit to marry Levi, so Nasi Nachris, the one who the high Nachris, Chazinam Lahai, Kamashmon. You would think that since she was not completely pushed out of the equation, in that case she was pushed out of the equation completely. Here she's not completely pushed out of the equation because in this situation she could marry, and she did marry Levi. So therefore you would think maybe since she was not removed, then maybe now Shimon could marry her since Shimon's wife died. Kamashmon, no. As soon as the Nefila at Reuven's death, if Shimon couldn't marry this woman, then that's it. Okay. Let's see a fourth Mishnah. Shloisha Achen. You have three brothers. Shnain mehen nisun shtei achayos. Again, two brothers, so same case, married two sisters. So you have Reuben and Shimon married Rachel and Leah. The Echon Nachros, and you have Levi who married some other girl. Now, instead of death, let's talk about divorce. Girish Echem Ebayachayas Asishto. So Reuven divorced his wife. So now Reuven is no longer married to this sister. And you have Shimon who's married to a sister, which really doesn't matter. Umeis Nasi Nachros. Now Levi died. Now Levi's what? Levi was married to a Nachros, to some woman that, so Reuven or Shimon should be able to marry her. The Kansa Hamagarish. Reuven is the one that married her. Reuven married the Megarish. Umeis. And then he dies. So Zuhi Sh'amru, this is what we say, V'kul Shemesu, O Nisgarshu Sursen Mutaros. So in this situation, we say that since there was Gerushin, the Tzara is mutter. So you can maybe say, 1 second. If Reuven married Levi's wife, so isn't that a Tzara? The answer is no. Because at the time, the Nachris was never the Tzara of this Ereva, as she was divorced before the wife of Levi came. So since Reuven divorced the sister before Levi died and before Reuven married her, did Yibum with her, so therefore it's not a problem. And therefore he's allowed to do so. And not only that, if Reuven subsequently dies, Shimon could do Yibum with her, with this Nachris. The Taima di Girish, Mes. We're saying it apparently in this order, that Reuven divorced his wife, and only afterwards Levi died. But let's say first Levi died, which means there's some Zika over here to Reuven, so l'chara that should be enough that now it's considered like Tsaras Ereva, that if Reuven subsequently dies, then Shimon can't, she's not going to be Zokok to Shimon. So Ravashi is also married Zika. Betray Achi. We see from here, even those two brothers, there's Reuven and Shimon, only Levi died, so Reuven and Shimon are there, but we must hold the Yesh Zika. The Zika is so strong that it has to be in this order, because if it was the other way around, we would say that Reuven has this connection to the nachras, so much so that if Reuven afterwards dies, that's considered like tsaras ereva, and therefore the nachras will not will be free from Shimon. Rav Ashi kashed Rav Nachman, and according to Rav Ashi, it's a question on Rav Nachman. So Rav Ashi is the one that made this diuk. Hahi diyuka le'el lav dafka dehu adin afgadul ovid maimer. So we said above that, according to Rav Nachman, Zosimeris ein zika fil b'chad acha. So we mentioned, the Mishnah before said ein zika. When it comes to Maimer, it's only because he did Maimer. If he didn't do Maimer, if Levi did nothing, then l'chayra, even Yibum could be done. So l'chayra, that's a question. Or here it talks about l'chayra it's a raya of yeshika. So Rav Ashi will say, "Who did the afagav the loy of it b'maimer." Going back to this first Mishnah, that we said that really, even if Maimer wasn't done, as we said, nachros michotz cholza yevumi lo miyavma, which is really the end of going all the way back to question 3. Because if you hold yesh zika, like Rav Ashi is saying, he will say that even in that situation, even though he didn't do Maimer, it doesn't matter. There's still enough of an emotional, enough of a connection that Yibum can no longer be done. Tani Maimer, so why does it mention the case of Maimer? Even if Maimer didn't take place, nonetheless, we would still require only Chalitza. Afuki Beisham and Yamri Maimer Kaina. Kaina Kinyan Gomer Kamashmon Loka Beishamai. So you can maybe think that Maimer is so strong that it's like a Kinyan Gomer. And because of that, says Rashi, the afil chalitza lo tiboy nachras. Maybe then you don't even need to do chalitza. So the chiddush is not like it's not so strong, and therefore it's enough to at least require chalitza. Rav Nachman kashed Rav Ashi. So according to Rav Nachman, you can ask the question the other way around. Maybe he holds no. In this Mishnah that we just learned, maybe it's talking about even in the situation where Levi died and then afterwards Reuven divorced, nonetheless the same din would apply. Saras muteris, that because he holds ein zika, so and then Reuven subsequently dies, so that Sarah is still mutter to Shimon. El zuhi l'mutimai. Then what does this come to exclude? L'muti kanas v'achach giresh. It's coming to exclude a case where if he actually married, says Rashi, hanachras, if Reuven married her, v'achach giresh es ishto, and then he divorced his wife, umeis, and then he dies, the asura nachras mishum tsaras achos isha. In that situation, certainly because he was married to her, it's achos isha, and therefore it's the tsar of the achos isha, and that certainly would pater her. She would not subsequently do chalitza even with Shimon. Tanicha isavar lo Rabbi Yirmiyah. Diarmer tavra misha shanazu lo shanazu. The one who said that in the first parak that when there was a stira, I said, okay, the one who learned this didn't learn this. B'haitana savar misa mapelas. B'haitana savar nesuin harishainim mapilin. And we said that there was a whole machlokus of what is the ikr. Is it the misa of, let's say, when the man dies, that's when she has to be fit? Or is it nesuin harishainim mapilin? Is it totally by the first marriage? So zuhil miyuti kanasosav girish. So then we can taka say, okay, it's coming to exclude the situation where he was already married and then he divorced. So in that situation, it's still considered to be tsaras erva. El isavela karavni yamil olam chad tanahu. It's one tana of zu ein sarchleimer zukatani zuhi limutimai. What's it come to exclude? So al karcha Rabbi Yirmiyah he holds like him. Lo Rabba hanicha yisavela kravashi zuli miuti meis below girish. He's coming to exclude if he died in a divorce. So al karcha kravashi svirle. Okay, next Mishnah. V'kulon shahoyu behen kedushin o gerishin b'safek. Let's say, out of all the 15 arayos mentioned in the beginning of this Masechta, if all of them had a situation where the brother died, and now the question is, should we do yibum Well, what happens if there was a suffix kedushin or suffix gerushin? So in this case, this is considered to be, as Rashi says, havat sarasa suffix saras erva, dilma igrisha erva, gabi kedushin dimulu mekansha. So let's say you had this girl who was, let's say, Reuven's daughter, which of course, as we said, if Reuven's daughter married Shimon, but maybe it was a suffix kedushin. And now that we mentioned the Mishnah, so that it patters not only obviously Reuven's daughter, Reuven can't do yibum with her, but also the tzara. But the question is, what if it was a suffix kedushin? So in that case, what is the status again of the tzara? Well, suffix kedushin, and then the man subsequently dies. Do we say that the tzara also is totally pater from yibum and even chalitza? So we say, Hari elu hatzaras choltzos v'omas yevamos. Because of this uncertainty, we at least require chalitza to be performed. So ketzad suffix kedushin. So what is the case of suffix kedushin? Zarka kedushin suffix karvula suffix karvula. So he took kedushin kesef and he threw it. The question was it closer to him or to her? Zui suffix kedushin. Suffix gerushin kasav b'chsav yadai. If a person writes b'ksav yadai with his writings, they no love edim, but there's no witnesses. Or yesh love edim, they're witnesses. Ein bo zman, but the time is not written on the get. Yesh bo zman, the ein bo ela eidecha. There's only one witness. Zeu suffix gerushin. If you look at Rashi, kasav b'ksav yadai, the kaimel ha'itzil of ksav yadai shu chayev loy goyvim nechasim b'nei chayrin al ksav yadai b'lo edim milsehi. So it does have some power, but not when it comes to gittin. So in this case, it was a suffix. So therefore, we required the tsar to have chalitza. The ilu be gerushin suffix karvelo lokatani my taima. L'chayri, you should say the same case, which is brought down in Masechtas Gittin numerous times, that it takes a get and he throws it, and the question is, was it close to him? Was it close to her? So why does it mention that case? The fact that it doesn't mention it, says Rashi, apparently we say that suffix isn't even strong enough to require the tsar even to have chalitza. So why? So Maraba Isha Zu. This woman is becheskas heter l'shukoi medes. This tsara, right? Since there's a chazaka, if she's married and there is tsaras ereva, so she's mutter. So again, you have the sister, and there's a whole question about her. We don't even know if, in fact, she is, if they're married. Says Rashi, koydem l'chein im yomos heter l'shukomedes koydem l'chein im yomos bal, if her husband dies, shaharit tsaras erevahi u'masafek ata bol asro. So what are you trying to do? You're aser the tsar masafek al tesren masafek. We're not going to aser masafek. So again, because the whole notion is, again, she's really cheskas heteromedas, because she should, in other words, you should be allowed to do chalitza with her, but in this situation, because it's a suffix, so in the case of a suffix, if let's say her husband dies, she's a tsaras erev, and therefore she'll be completely mutter. Right? Because if it's a tsaras erva, you don't have to do anything. So what are you going to do? Require her to do chalitza? No, you don't have to do chalitza. Fine. Al tasrena masafik, says Rashi. Avol b'hanach gimel gitin la masafik asrina in law. Dahagitahu. It's a get el she'in min a muvchar. Okay. Amru le'obaya yihachi b'kedushinami. You should say the same thing when it comes to kedushin. Nema. So again, this was. If the whole case is a suffix, and therefore the tsara is really, if it's truly a suffix erva, that it's a suffix tsaras erva, then she should be mutter and shouldn't have to do chalitz at all, because she has a cheskas heter that she actually is free, because she's married to the tsara. So once you say things tam by kedushin, if there's a suffix, name it isha zu b'cheskas heter liyave momedes. This woman, if it's in fact a good kedushin, we'll say that she is zoko. She's supposed to do yibum. Why do we say that she can't do yibum? You should do yibum. So Gemara says hasam l'chumra. Oh, over here it is a stringency to be able to require to say that she has to have yibum. So therefore, we only require chalitza. The other thing is a kula. So when it says 1 second, you're telling me that it's a chumrah to require yibum. Maybe it's actually going to turn into a kula. Because zimnin de azul, who, let's say the man did a safek kedushin with one sister. Then he decides he's going to do it right, and he's going to do a proper kedushin with the second sister. Now v'inami zimnin de asa achar hamakadosh la ledida kedushi vadai, or possibly someone else will come and will be makadosh her a kedushi vadai. The question is the second kedushin anything? Now v'kivan de asa lamar letzor leviyume. If in fact we're going to ask her that Sarah to do yibum, what does that show? It shows that the first marriage was actually a good marriage. So Amri, what will people say? The Kama Kedushin. Since we're going to ask her that Sarah Erva must be the first Kedushin is something, and the Ubas will have Kedushin. And they'll say the second Kedushin that the second guy gave was really nothing. But it's not true. As Rashi says, the Ish is Ish, because they're going to say, well, she's an Ish is Ish. If the first Kedushin was something, you can't give Kedushin to a woman who's already married. It means nothing. But the truth is, it's only a safek, and really she should need a get, but that would be the huge problem in this situation, because if you ask the Kula, says the Gemara on Lamed Alf Amud Aleph. Kivan, Gemara says like this: Kivan de matzachos chalitza. But since we're going to require the Sarah, you have to do chalitza with her, then maybe yade the chomer ba'almahu. They're going to know that it was just a chomer ba'alma, and therefore this mistake will not end up happening. Okay, says Rashi, v'hai delo misyavemes sarasa chomer ba'almahu. The reason why you can't do yibum with the tzara is it's a chomer. Yachi gershinami listening by gershon should also say v'litzrucha chalitza. Who made the yade the chomer ba'almahu? Why don't we just say that it's again just the chomer ba'alma? Says Rashi, Klomer, ichaish the loy lamer inshi mid the chaltza vadi gershon gemurnin, who people are not going to suspect the marriage and divorce because chalitza was done. The ikadish le lemigoreshes inish the alma v'hader kiddush lachraina lachraisa. The Kamaisa Kiddush the Basraisa Lav Kiddushin Lotechashal. No, no one's going to be afraid that that people are going to say that the second marriage is nothing. Midalomis Yavemes, the fact that you didn't do Yibum, or we don't allow Yibum with the Tzara, Mediaida the Chalitza Chomer Be'almahu. They'll understand that why couldn't they do Yibum? You're not allowed to do Yibum, right? So therefore it must be the whole Chalitza is just a Chomer Be'alma. So if that's the case, so again, so we say no. If you say that we can do chalitza, people are going to start making a mistake and think you do yibum. Maybe by the tzar also, people are going to say the same thing. So says Rashi, Gabi Kedushin, Amai chaletzes. Why should you do chalitza? Ha'asili avume. You may end up doing yibum. V'dilma kedushi erva kedushi havi misam l'tzar serva. No, but tisabin the in mekakum achazaka kakayma. If you want to do yibum, it's fine because there's already a chazaka. There's a chazaka of cheskas heter liyavim, and therefore we're not concerned. Okay, we're going to stop here. Let's see if we have a question over here. Question 4. Safek gerushin safek b'ksav yado madul ein saras erva misyavemes. So how come in this case that we said of kasabik sav yadai? So we said, okay, in that case that's a safek gerushin, and because that's a safek gerushin, so when it comes to the tzara, so you only have to do chalitza and you don't do yibum. So on this, the question is, if in fact it really is a good get, right? If it's really a good get, madua in sars erva misyavemas. So then why can't the tsaras erva do yibum? Har b'diavad get kosher. If in fact she was divorced, so then afterwards when he dies, it's a good. It's not a tzara. So why would we say that she can only do chalitza? Her answer is because we are saying there's some element of a psul chatchila isharis le amri inchi tsaras erva misyavemes. If we actually allow the tzara, people will say that a tsaras erva can do yibum in general. And because of the concern that people will end up saying that tsaras erva in general could end up doing this, that's the reason why we have this concern, which is the same question as TB 15. Let's see how he writes it. Kivan de karle psul chatchili shoris leyami inchi tsaras erva misyavemes, which again just means ba'alma. That in general, that could be a potential concern that a person could end up making this this statement. Let's see one more question. Question TA 13. Shleish achin meis, echad mehen, v'yachach meis hasheni. So I have 3 brothers. One of them died, and then afterwards, the second one died. He'in neseres eishas harishon al shlishi is the first woman usher to the Levi. Kiman dahavi eishas beis mesim bezika olo, because there's an element of 2 zikas or not. Okay, I'm not sure if I even did this. The answer is muteres the eishas shnei mesim derabanan gzer mishum shtei yevamos mebeis echad v'u gozru rak al yidei maimer v'lo bezika. Ad kan.